Hello, I'm Jorge Gestoso. Welcome to a new program. On today's show, how is life in the occupied territories? Our guest, Issa Amro, who has been called by some the Palestinian Gandhi, a prominent human rights activist in the West Bank who's been recognized by the United Nations as a tireless advocate for non-violent resistance. Issa Amro, a warm welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Issa, curiously, you have been arrested by the Palestinian authorities, but curiously also by the authorities of the Palestinian authorities. How come?
Wilson says, if you want to make an enemy, try to change something. And I'm trying to change the situation in Palestine. I'm trying to end the occupation. I'm trying to advocate for the Palestinian human rights. That made me a target for the Israeli occupation and, made me a target for the Palestinian security forces who are oppressing the Palestinian freedom of expression. For me, human rights is a human rights, freedom of expression is a freedom of expression, regardless of the oppressor. So the oppressed people should get support regardless of the oppressor. This is what I'm doing as an activist in Palestine.
And in the case of Palestinian authorities, why they want to suppress the freedom of expression?
Unfortunately, the Palestinian Authority is authority without an authority. The Israeli occupation took off everything from them. The Israeli occupation even is suppressing our president, suppressing our security forces. So we are victims of the Israeli occupation. They force our security forces to suppress other Palestinians, to make them silent. So it's about shutting off human rights defenders, and it's about covering our voices from reaching to here, reaching to Latin America, reaching all over the world. We are trying as Palestinians to resist the occupation peacefully, and they don't want that because Israel can't play Gandhi. They can't defeat a non-violence revolution because they know the moment we start mobilizing our people in a massive non-violence revolution, they will not be able to stop us to get our freedom and justice and equality as Palestinians who are living in their own country.
Benjamin Netanyahu out of the picture, or officially out of the picture. Your reaction?
Benjamin Netanyahu is not the only criminal in the occupied territories. We are talking about occupation. It's a system, and Netanyahu was one of the worst in the system. So if he left, the occupation is there, the system is there, the Israeli army is there, the Israeli violent, illegal settlers are there. So I'm happy that Netanyahu is not there anymore, but many other micro Netanyahu will be in power soon. So we need to strengthen and unite our power as Palestinians and as people in the world who are supporting the Palestinian cause. Israeli occupation is the enemy of the human rights all over the world.
So with Benny Gantz at the head of the government, nothing really is going to change dramatically?
Not a big change will happen without a real pressure on Israel to end its occupation. The Israeli occupation is a 5-star occupation. They don't pay the price for their occupation. Israel doesn't pay the price for their illegal settlements. They don't pay any price for suppressing me. They don't pay any price for the apartheid policies and the racist attitude of their leadership. We don't exist as Palestinians in their eyes. They don't recognize us as humans. They don't recognize us as people. They deserve equality and they deserve freedom. They want to keep the occupation, but Netanyahu made it worse, and Benny Gantz wants to make it nicer. We don't want a nicer occupation. We want equal rights in our land. We want to live in peace, in justice, and we want to live with our self-determination. I live in the city of Hebron. The city of Hebron is divided for H1 and H2, Hebron 1 and Hebron 2, because of the fake peace agreements. In my neighborhood, 22 checkpoints, 100 movement barriers. They changed the name of the streets in my lifetime from Palestinian Arabic names to Israeli Hebrew names. They closed 1,800 shops. They destroyed the economy in my own city. They destroyed the neighborhoods. Around 1,000 Palestinian apartments became empty. They closed everything just to make the settlers comfortable. They are trying to give the settlers welfare life on the expense of our basic human rights as Palestinians. I live in a city. Imagine that you live in a city and close to you, few meters, settlers are living. The Israeli settlers are under the Israeli civil law, and we as Palestinians are under the Israeli military law. Under the military law, you have no basic human rights. You are not allowed for any kind of peaceful general assembly. This is why I was arrested many, many times by the Israeli occupation. They will arrest me more, and I'm in ongoing trial since 3 years. So the Israeli settlers, they are attacking Palestinians. These days, it's the olive harvest campaign. It's the most important farmers month, that the families all together, they go with cultural events, with the social events to harvest their olives. They burnt olive trees, the Israeli settlers. They attacked Palestinian farmers. They prevented them from going to their farms, to their olive trees. They stole the olives, for sure, in front of the Israeli soldiers and the Israeli security forces. As Palestinians, we don't have anyone to protect us from the Israeli settlers who are well armed, and as Palestinians, we are not allowed to carry arms, but we are advocating for non-violent resistance and non-violent reaction to the Israeli oppression and Israeli segregation and racism.
And you are in Washington, the capital of the United States. And where is the United States facing all that situation that you are explaining?
Unfortunately, the official attitude here is completely biased and blindly supporting the Israeli occupation.
But what is the motivation? Why the Americans are supporting all those, what you describe as systematic violation of human rights? Give me your view of why.
Many reasons. One of the main reasons that the American people don't know the truth on the ground. We are stereotyped by the American media as terrorists. So they think we are terrorists and we are attacking Israel, which is the opposite, that we are under occupation, we are without any basic human rights, and we are the stateless people. We don't have any rights for any basic human rights. This is the first reason.
Okay. What you're telling me is part of the answer. You're telling me one of the answers is that the American people are being badly informed or misinformed. That's what you say.
Yes.
But I repeat the question. The question is, why do you think, I might be more precise, that the U.S. government is allowing and eventually supporting that? What is your explanation?
The explanation, the other reason, that the American officials are acting according to their interests, not according to their principles, and not according to the international law.
What are
the
the
interest is to support Israel.
For what?
For being an ally to the American government in the Middle East. It's about that the American government nowadays is trying to give Israel free hands over Palestine because of many, let me say, pro-Israeli lobby who are working here to change their opinion. If you're an American official, congressperson, and you try to touch Palestine and Israel against the occupation and according to the international law, you have people here in America who may sabotage your election campaigns. So you will not be elected again. So it's complicated.
You're telling me the Israel lobbyists are, quote unquote, buying the politicians in the U.S. to vote and support that sort of systematic...
Unfortunately, that is happening, that you see a lot of pro-Israeli lobbies here who are supporting blindly many officials here to be very biased with Israeli occupation.
You have heard that recently we're talking Russia and Turkey making an agreement regarding the situation with the Kurds. Is that changing something for Palestine?
Unfortunately, the big powers, they look for interests. Russia made an agreement with Turkey, and America made an agreement, USA made an agreement with Turkey in the land of Syria. Look what is happening, that the big powers are distributing the other people's territories. They are taking us back to 1970s of Sykes-Picot. Now they are just dividing the land, giving authority to other countries, on other countries. That is very bad. Look to what is happening in Saudi Arabia. The American government nowadays is supporting the dictatorship, Mohammed bin Salman, who killed one of the best famous Khashoggi journalist in the world. Look how they are supporting the war on Yemen. The Yemenis are dying every day. Look what they are doing in Libya. Look what they are doing in Syria. Look how they are supporting, the occupation in Palestine. So it's not only about Palestine. It's about the Middle East, and it's about Africa. It's about, look, how they just they make up. They really, support dictatorships. Look to Egypt. They are supporting the Sisi, who is a real dictator, who is really, suppressing his own people. Human Rights Watch wrote many times about their human rights violations. So that is the main issue here, that the American government is really acting according to their interest, not according to the international law, and not according to the American people principles. I know America. America is the country of freedom. America is the country of justice. America is the country of equality. I was moved many times and inspired by Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement. We use a lot of tactics, a lot of, we usually, imitate them with many actions and activities we do in the Palestinian occupied territories.
So what you're telling me then is that you have the American people that believes in all those principles, civil rights, respect, and solidarity, and you have the U.S. government. Do you say that the U.S. government do not represent the American people?
I can say that with their foreign policies, for sure, not representing the majority of the American people, who are really, doing a lot to make a change here in the U.S. I see a lot of social activities. I see a lot of support for me as a Palestinian coming here. I was invited many times by the civil society here in the U.S. I feel safe here. I feel welcomed here. I don't feel that I'm a second-class visitor here. On the contrary, and we have many officials, even as Bernie Sanders, as many others, who are just defending Palestinian human rights defenders and defending Palestinian human rights. But we need to transform the people's power to a political power to make changes. We are asking to implement the international law, which everybody agreed on. We are not trying to impose our own, let me say, way of thinking. We are not trying to impose our own solution. We as Palestinians calling to implement the international law, and that is our reference. And we ask the people, to lobby with their government, to lobby with their lawmakers, to write to the media to change their perspectives. We are people who like to live. We like to live with freedom, with justice, with equality. Imagine that we are living in 2019 and I am under the Israeli military law, and my neighbors, the Israeli settlers, are living under the civil law. It's apartheid, it's racism, and it's 2019. To get into Jerusalem, I need a permit, and they don't give me. To build a house in Area C in the Palestinian occupied territories, because they sorted the land A, B, C according to the peace agreement, which was signed 1993, and it's not working anymore. You need to build a restroom. You need a permit from the Israeli military, and they don't give you to build a restroom in your land, in your neighborhoods. So we as Palestinians, we are now suffering from losing our land. We are suffering from segregation, separation, and we are suffering from apartheid. And unfortunately, they are taking our cause somewhere hidden. They don't want to tell or talk about our cause. Because they are completely embarrassed from Netanyahu's previous right-wing attitude and greedy and refusing any kind of peace agreement. Because of the social media we are very active with, and because of the activism here in the United States and Latin America and all over the world from the civil society, to raise our voices as Palestinian human rights defenders and Palestinian fighters.
For an audience that is not familiarized with life in the occupied territories, tell us, how is one day for an average person to live in an occupied territory in the West Bank, for example, in Hebron?
In Hebron, for example, I live in an area called H2, and H2 is under the Israeli military control. 22 checkpoints are around that area. And to go out from my house, I need to pass 2 checkpoints to go to my work. And there are streets where you are not allowed even to use. You see that soldiers in the checkpoints, they check you, they harass you, they detain you. I was detained many times. You don't know, you are not certain that you will reach your house, and you keep your heart inside the house because you don't feel safe about your family, because you don't have any protection first. And the Israeli settlers who are living there, they are well known and infamous of their violent attitude. They throw stones, they throw Molotov cocktails, they say a lot of bad things, they steal your stuff, they may shoot toward you because they all have guns. So you live in an area where you don't feel safe, you don't have
it's
enough
almost
water.
like a refugee camp.
It's more than a refugee camp even. It's an area where it's a big jail, you don't feel safe in it, and it's full of checkpoints, and it's full of segregation and separation and injustice. You are attacked. I was attacked many times by the Israeli settlers, and the end of the attack on me that I was arrested because I'm under the military law, I don't have any rights.
And tell us about how you think that the media, the international media, is playing on all that. Because you were mentioning that when you are in the US, many times people are watching the situation in the occupied territories that is exactly the opposite of the reality. How the media is portraying the reality of you guys. Why you think that people do not know what is really going on, and it shows exactly the opposite? Because you were mentioning, when you live here, most of the news started by saying that the Israeli troops or Israeli settlers are defending themselves from an attack. They're always defending themselves. They're never taking the initiative to do what you're saying, to create an apartheid, to attack, to violate all your human rights. Why do you think that that is going on?
Unfortunately, the mainstream media is so affected and influenced by the political leadership all over the world. And they just try to hide the biased position of their country.
So what are the service of the governments or of the political and business interests?
Unfortunately, it's both. That they don't want to show that the occupation is occupying Palestine. I'm occupied. I'm not occupying Tel Aviv. We don't have tanks. We don't have airplanes. Look to the people in Gaza. They are protesting peacefully, and they are killed. They are shot by snipers. They are just don't have clean water. They don't have, any kind of access to hospitals.
Electricity sometimes.
They don't have enough electricity. They are completely sieged. And the media says that the people in Gaza are attacking Israel.
You cannot reach the coast. You cannot reach the sea.
You can't reach the sea to do fishing. You are completely, surrounded, sieged, we can say. On the other hand, the media is not covering the real truth, which is happening in the ground by the Israeli authorities.
So they're painting that the guilties are the innocents and the innocents are the guilty.
Exactly. The victims are being described as terrorists, and the real criminals, according to the international law standards, are defending themselves. That's how the media in many countries is twisting the truth. From supporting the victims, supporting the people who need their support, to supporting the big powers. That is, in a way or another, not happening, for example, in Latin America. Many people and many governments, they try to support the Palestinians, and this is what we want. We want the people, the governments, everybody to support us according to the international law. We need implementation of the international law. We need justice, equality, and freedom for the Palestinians.
So as a peaceful activist, what are your plans, and what do you think that is the future that face you in order to change the reality?
As an activist, I'm trying to mobilize my people to start a real civil rights movement in Palestine and a real revolution. But we can't do that without
peaceful revolution.
For sure. Without an external support, we can't survive on the ground, because the oppression and the suppression of the Israeli occupation is very high. So we need people here in the US and Latin America and Europe to support our peaceful approach to end the Israeli occupation. So we come here to increase the awareness among politicians, among the civil society, among the media, to recognize our rights to resist the occupation peacefully and not to suppress our voices and stop any kind of activities or direct actions against the occupation. This is what is happening. If you try to do something, it's illegal to do a peaceful protest in Hebron against the occupation. It's illegal to do any gathering with more than 10 to talk against the occupation. So even peaceful resistance is not allowed, which means it's not about security. It's not about defending Israel. It's about defending the occupation and defending the Israeli colonies, which is taking our land, taking our water, and taking our freedom of movement in our own land, which the international law gave it to us according to the resolutions.
How optimistic are you to achieve all those goals?
I am very optimistic. I think the moment we have massive support here in the United States, in Latin America, in Europe, all over the world, the Palestinians will start their revolution, and never ever oppressors stay forever. The civil rights movement made a huge change here. Gandhi made a huge change here. In South Africa, the anti-apartheid movement won. As Palestinians, it's a matter of time, but we want to make it sooner. That is what I think will happen very soon, I hope.
Issa Amro, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.